So, if you're familiar with my channel, you're probably familiar with the 1931 film Skippy, starring child actor Jackie Cooper. But I'm not sure if I impressed upon you just how big Skippy was. Skippy was the Ninja Turtles, or the MCU of its day. And the story behind its creator is a tragic tale involving kidnapping plots, the FBI, and an evil peanut butter company. And of course, the fact that Skippy was a communist. And that's not even a joke. This is the story of Skippy and the rise and fall of America's favorite little communist. Skippy started life as a newspaper comic created by Percy Crosby in 1923. He based the character and his adventures on his own childhood and imbued in Skippy his own communist ideals. The character was overwhelmingly popular and quickly became mass-marketed. Skippy merch included school supplies, chocolate bars, toothpaste, dolls, toys, books. You probably noticed a couple of these things behind me. So, this is a Skippy doll. You can see that here. And these were very, very popular. And they had all kinds of different versions of this doll. They had different outfits. They had like a little Boy Scout outfit. This is like his sort of main outfit. Just, all kinds of different outfits. And then this one in the frame, this is pretty cool. So I don't know if you can really see this. But what this is it's actually a school scribbler from the year 1931. You can see the name's on there. It's from the movie. It's actually from the sequel to Skippy, Sookie. And let me tell you, if you pulled this out in class in 1931, kids were going to be jealous, okay? You were going to be the coolest kid in class. In 1931, Paramount adapted the comics into the film Skippy. The film was so successful, they released a sequel the very same year. Skippy was nominated for Best Picture. Its 9-year-old star, Jackie Cooper, was nominated for Best Actor and became a superstar overnight, and the film's director, Norman Taurog, did win the Oscar for Best Director. The plot of Skippy follows precocious young Skippy and his adventures in the shantytown across the tracks. Skippy's best friend is an impoverished boy named Sookie. By the end of the film, Skippy convinces his wealthy father to redistribute his wealth to the people of the shantytown. In the sequel, Skippy becomes more of a Robin Hood figure, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. Clearly, this is all taken from the obvious communist bent of the comics, and with America in the midst of the Great Depression, the message resonated with people. Skippy, with his kind-hearted and giving nature, was seen as an ideal role model for kids. Nobody was making the connection with communism. And so bootleg Skippy merch started showing up, including one that is still sold today, Skippy peanut butter. Yes, Skippy peanut butter was named as such to capitalize on the Skippy sensation, and the original packaging heavily resembled the comics. Compare this tub of licensed Skippy caramel corn with the original Skippy peanut butter logo, a blatant and obvious case of copyright infringement. Percy Crosby and his family tried for decades to sue the peanut butter company to no avail. Meanwhile, Skippy comics kept getting more and more political. Crosby was taking on targets like Al Capone, the KKK, and President Roosevelt. In one comic, Crosby portrays his Capone caricature, Spumoni, buying votes for Roosevelt, with Skippy and the kids forming their own political party, the Revolutionists. By the 1940s, Percy Crosby had made enemies of the government for his constant vocal accusations that Roosevelt was stacking the Supreme Court to pass specific anti-NRA laws, and for buying ads in hundreds of newspapers across the country to display his anti-Roosevelt political cartoons. On February 13, 1934, FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover received a complaint from a Hearst executive that Crosby had been followed home and had received threats from unidentified sources. Hoover ordered an investigation entitled Percy Crosby's Suspected Kidnap Attempt, and Crosby's 4-year-old son, Percy Jr., also known as Skippy, was fingerprinted. Years after Crosby's death, research disclosed that this incident was the same date that the decision for Skippy Incorporated in the U.S. Patent Office became final and was not appealed by Rosefield Packing Company, the parent company of Skippy Peanut Butter. Rosefield's Chicago Council stated in a February 3, 1934 letter that Crosby would be kept under surveillance. violence. Paramount released a third Skippy film, the now teenage Cooper playing a version of himself trying to remake Skippy, but deciding ultimately it was time for Skippy to be left behind. How prophetic. Percy Crosby was outed as a communist, and the public and the press very quickly turned on him. His divorce was highly publicized. In June 1944, he discovered that despite the 1934 final decision for Skippy Incorporated, Rosefield had continued to sell its peanut butter under the counterfeit Skippy label. A cease and desist letter from Crosby's new attorney resulted in Rosefield's renewed request to its Chicago attorney to report Crosby and Skippy Inc. to the Criminal Division of the Justice Department. In September 1946, the IRS froze all assets of Percy Crosby and Skippy Incorporated. In 1948, Crosby attempted suicide and was subsequently confined to a mental hospital for 13 years. During this time, his assets and company, Skippy Inc., was liquidated by the IRS. Throughout his years in confinement, Crosby wrote thousands of memos and tried to seek help from the outside world to gain his release, including letters to the National Press Club, to publishers, and a plea to Erwin Griswold, Harvard Law School dean. Letters to his children and others were censored, and Crosby was led to believe that his children had been college educated with the royalties from Skippy peanut butter and turned against him. This was during the period of the Senator McCarthy hearings exposing communists in government and focusing particularly on writers, artists, Hollywood directors, and screenwriters. Crosby continued to write and draw all throughout his imprisonment, keeping his art locked in a trunk, a key around his neck with a shoelace to protect it the best he could. He died while imprisoned on his 73rd birthday, and his children were not even notified. They found out through an obituary in the New York Times. The death of my father after his mysterious disappearance for years was a shock. Little did I know when I was appointed by the New York Surrogate Court as his administratrix in March 1965 that he was a political prisoner of the powerful Corn Products Corporation, who had bought Rosefield, which had stolen his Skippy business and destroyed his reputation and career. Joan Crosby Tibbets, daughter of Percy Crosby. Skippy is pretty much forgotten today, both the films and the comics, and the story of what happened to Skippy's creator is not widely known. Luckily, his daughter was able to register the domain skippy.com at the dawn of the internet and uses the site to tell the story of her father. No matter what your political opinions are, no matter what you think about communism or President Roosevelt or the NRA, I think we can all agree that this should never have happened to this guy. I, of course, came across this story when I was doing my research on Jackie Cooper, who played Skippy in the movies, like I said, and I just couldn't believe it. It was such a crazy story, and I'd never heard it told anywhere, so let me know what you think in the comments below. What do you think of this story? Had you ever heard of it before? You know, like, I don't know. I mean, it's really nuts. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you guys in the next video.